Hello and welcome to the very first episode of The Dental Chair. I am your host, Marguerite Morgan. I am the founder and director of Irish Dental Jobs with almost 25 years recruitment experience in the legal and dental arena. I tend to do things very differently, and I wanted to showcase how we establish and maintain relationships and make those connections to match the right people to dental practices nationwide. Over the next 8 episodes, we will be discussing a couple of key insights from our recently launched salary guide and dental insights and trends. And joining me to discuss these on my right is my right-hand woman, Margaret Kierans. Margaret has been working with me for the last 6 years. She is the marketing manager at Irish Dental Jobs, and she is the master behind the research for the dental insights and trends. And she is absolutely delighted to be joining me here today. Aren't you, Margaret?
Delighted. No, actually, I am delighted to be here. Although it's way out of my comfort zone, here I am. I made it. But as Marguerite said, we've been working together for the last 6 years. We get on very well. There's never a dull moment in the office. Every single week, there is a new business idea. I have lists upon lists, as long as my arm, to get through each week. But but one of the most recent ones is our salary guide.
You know, I am very, very proud of the work, that we've done and the amount of time we've invested. And I really do believe that, what we've produced is really, really decent.
High five.
High five. M&M, the dream team. So, just with regards, the key insights is kind of your baby. So, I know there are 2 in particular that really got you or resonated with you. So
yeah, the two that stood out for me the most.
Yeah.
One was that dental hygienists, newly qualified dental hygienists earn 8,000 more than a newly qualified dentist. How is that?
Well, that was actually a surprise to me as well, because anytime I submit a CV, the majority of the times I'm just submitting them at the hourly rate. I'm not actually calculating what that is on a 37.5-hour week. So the minimum salary we would be placing a newly qualified hygienist at is €35 per hour. 4 years ago, that was the minimum salary as well. I don't even know if we would have a newly qualified hygienist available at that rate. But if you do calculate the €35 an hour over a 37.5-hour week, it is 8,250 more than what a newly qualified dentist is on offer. Now, for dental hygienists, since they were deemed employees, each practice, has a different setup. So not every practice would offer a guaranteed hourly rate. Some would offer a lower hourly rate than the 35, and they might have a commission structure in place. And that could be per treatment or what they generate on a monthly basis. Or they may have a percentage split in place. So it is very different. But for a newly qualified dentist, if they are being hired on an employee basis, the minimum salary at the moment would be 60,000, which is 8,000 less than a newly qualified dentist. And the max is 70,000. Now, just to bear in mind, the majority of dentists are hired on a self-employed basis. There are few practices offering associate roles as on an employee basis, and when they do, it's basically probably up to about 12 months, and after that they would then be hired on a self-employed contract.
Okay. Still doesn't make sense to me though how a dentist, it takes 5 years to qualify and then you qualify as a doctor.
Yeah, that is right, but I don't know.
Okay. Moving on, we'll go back to the salary guide anyway. The second point I had that really resonated with me as an employee was that 25% of support staff haven't seen a salary increase in over a decade.
Yeah, that was surprising to me as well. And especially, I'm an employer, so coming from, an employer's point of view, and I can only speak for myself as well. I would have thought that a salary increase would be standard every year, providing that the business is doing well and that person has been committed to you for the previous 12 months. For you, for example, you make a big difference to my life on a personal and professional basis. You come in with a smile on your face every day. You never move from that chair. You know, you're in that chair from the very first time you walk into the morning until you leave. And my children absolutely love you. So, you know, for me, it's a small token of appreciation. Now, whether it's standard, you know, I'm not 100%, but over the course of the next 8 episodes, we will have a couple of our long-standing clients on the dental chair who have mastered the art of retaining staff. So it would be good to put the question to them and have their take on it.
Well, just to say, we are the only organisation in the country with this information. And if you do want to order your hard copy, you can do so at irishdentaljobs.ie/salary guide.
And now for our very first episode, we're going to dive into the art of retaining staff. I'm thrilled joining me is a long-established client of Irish Dental Jobs since we established in 2009. My following guest runs 2 very successful high-end dental clinics South Dublin. She is also an amazing businesswoman. She is one of the most positive personalities I've had the pleasure of working with, and an employer who's absolutely mastered the art of retaining staff. Allow me to introduce you to Dr. Sarah Jane Dunne.
Thank you, Marguerite. Very kind words.
Very true.
Maybe not all deserved, but thank you very much. Pleasure to be here and congratulations on doing all this. Amazing.
Oh, well, thanks very much. It's a bit daunting at the moment.
Yeah,
but
you're a trailblazer. So
Yeah.
you should be really proud of yourself. It's great that you're pushing dentistry out.
Well, I'm just trying to, like I said, I tend to do things very differently, like from a recruitment aspect. And I wanted to showcase how we establish and maintain relationships, but also the work that goes behind the scenes in order to find the right people.
Yeah, and you're starting new conversations with people, which is amazing. It's your communication skills are always great, and your relationship building skills are great. So that's it's great to see it in a new environment, pushing that out even further.
Oh, well, it's all new. So
you talked me into it.
So we've been working with each other a long time now, like basically from the beginning. And, you know, you're absolutely one person who has mastered the art of retaining staff. So what key factors do you believe are the key to finding the right people and maintaining the right people?
I mean, if I'm perfectly honest, I think some of it does come down to luck as regards finding them. I have 2 practices. One in Dundrum, which a couple of years ago we joined the Portman family, as you know.
Yeah.
We've been there for 22 years almost now. And when we bought that practice, there was a little dental nurse there called Norma Jean McMahon, who was my dental nurse. She was there already. She then became the receptionist. We got through a few turbulent times trying to get to know each other as dentist and nurse, and finding our feet as a young dentist and a young nurse. She then became receptionist, and she then became ultimately the practice manager.
Yeah.
And she was there as part of the team when we took over, and she stood out as somebody with great skills, great empathy, great work ethic, fantastic relationship builder with patients. And 25 years on, so she's there longer than I'm there. We're still very proud to have her as practice manager in Dundrum. We were blessed to have her, and I think one of the reasons we've been able to retain her for so long is because she's such a wonderful person and has forged such relationships within the team.
Yeah.
And I could have recruited for a decade and never found a Norma Jean.
Yeah. Well,
But I think
I can tell you now, the Norma Jeans are very far and few between, you know, and we're always looking for the Norma Jeans. But yeah.
As regards retaining staff, I think one of the things that I've learned is communicating with your team is really important, and making sure that you're choosing people who fit the ethos of your practice, because they can be a wonderful person, but if they don't fit the team and fit the values of the team, then the mesh just won't work no matter what. So I do try and speak a lot with the people I'm interviewing or meeting about what it is they're looking for, what their values are. And I try to be really specific about what our values are as a team to try and get that fit right.
So that would, you know, be on a par with, you know, what I'm always promoting is personality.
100%.
Over experience. If you're the right personality, the rest will follow.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean, you know, no experience is required, but it should be personality experience, because if you hire the wrong fit for your team, that can upset the whole apple cart.
And they could be a wonderful fit for another team, but they might not just be the right fit for your team.
But even for you, and I think I've said it to you as well, there's another clinic that I would believe is on a par to you, and they're very successful and they've retained their team. But the personalities in that practice are very different to the personalities in your practice.
Yeah.
Now, if I, had one leaving from one to the other, and I put it like, it wouldn't work.
It wouldn't work.
It wouldn't work. And it could upset everything.
Yeah.
In a sense. Once you know people's personalities, then you know where they're suited to.
Yeah, and a work environment has a personality. And sometimes I think people don't recognise that. Whether it's more casual or more formal, whether it's more, I would always speak to everybody on the team, and especially people who join us, that we have in both practices, have a very flat formation, in that there's no hierarchy, there's no pyramid, there's no head honcho.
Yeah.
There's no head honcho.
Yeah.
Every single person does a different role. Every single job in dentistry is challenging. Everybody needs to be at the top of their game, and everybody needs to respect everybody else. So, and it's difficult because dentistry is really, really busy. It's very busy. Especially now, there's so much compliance, there's so much requirements from a business reporting perspective, from a team training perspective. So it's difficult to be accessible. And dentistry it's such an unusual job, because the deliverers of the dentistry, the dentist and the dental nurse, are in a room with the door closed all day, every day, if they're busy.
Yeah.
So communication can be quite difficult. So you have to really seize the opportunities. It's very different to working in a corporate environment where there's the water cooler moments or the coffee moments. You don't get those on a regular basis. So you have to make it your business to seize little nuggets of time, and to make sure your team know if they want you, they can get you, and how they can get you, and make sure that there's a way that they can speak with you. Because if your practice, it's an interesting kind of juxtaposition, but if your practice is really running well, then it means that everybody is very busy with patients all the time. Front desk are dealing with their inquiries and the patients in front of them. The clinicians are busy delivering dentistry. The nurses are busy supporting the clinicians, and the management, etc., are busy doing what they do and supporting everybody else. So it's a very fractionated kind of workplace. So you do have to really make it your business to seize pockets of conversation wherever you can, and also to try and facilitate meetings, whether that's one-on-one or in groups, on a reasonably regular basis, to keep those communication ports open all the time.
And do you find, especially in recent years, have your staff come to you looking for flexible hours, or, trying to find that work-life balance? But I think your one practice, actually, when someone proves themselves, if anything ever changes for them on a personal basis, you do really try and accommodate. And I believe that's one of the reasons as well, your staff would stay with you. You really do go over and above. It's something that we always promote, try and offer a work and life balance. But it is difficult.
It's challenging.
It is difficult in a dental setting.
Yeah, because
it's
you
the
have
one
to,
area that's not generally not available.
Yeah, we are employed by our patients, and our patients want to come in at 7:30 in the morning, and they want to come in at 7:30 at night. So it can potentially create a very long day, but there are ways around it. One of the things that we do in both practices is, for almost all of the full-time team members, myself included, we work 4 days.
Right.
So we work 4 long days, but we then have a day off.
Yeah.
And that's been a huge thing, because it means you need to get your highlights done, you need to get your car NCT'd, you need to bring your child to a psychotherapist, whatever it is.
So if you weren't doing that, I'm restricted to location.
Yeah.
So you can only look at a certain amount. But for you, over the years, it was great because you were offering the longer hours and the 4 days. We could actually go much further afield.
Yeah.
And for people who generally trying to get to Dundrum would be difficult. So, a lot of people would travel from Kildare, or a lot of your staff would have been doing an hour and a half commute each way for a very, very long time. And it's a lot of times, it's the people who are living the further away, they're the people who we can get the jobs from.
Yeah.
Because if we're limited to a 9 to 5, 5 days a week, that's where...
Yeah, then they're doing the commute every single day.
You're in rush hour traffic and everything like that. Like, I actually have a client, and the start is at 7:30 and you finish at 4:45. So I was like, happy days, that I would, it'd be easy for me to get someone for the role. But because you had to go on the M50.
You're in two rush hours.
Like the 7:30 wasn't too bad, but the 4:45, is just...
I've had this conversation with team members recently where they may be in a different life cycle than they were before, and sort of trying to talk to them about, well, let's look at some options, and look, maybe we can work things so you can finish earlier on this day or that day. And actually a lot of the feedback is there's no point in me finishing earlier. 6 or 5 or 4:30, I will still get home after 7. So I'd rather have the longer work day less frequently and commute on the outside of the busy times and then have an extra day off.
But even for myself, and I say to everyone, I'd still, if I had to start work at 9:00, I still leave early to avoid the traffic.
100%.
And like anyone working for me, I remember I did an advertisement and, I was getting loads of comments and people saying your ad is brilliant and, it's really funny or whatever. And I was like, what did I do? Had to go back and look at it. And it was something like, we're allergic to traffic in the office. Like I just can't bear traffic. I think it's a waste of time and it's a waste of energy.
So the helicopter is coming next year.
Anyone who would come to work for me, they can really travel from anywhere, because I won't have anyone get involved in traffic. So they can start much earlier or they can start a bit later, as long as they come in and do a good day's work. Now, I'm slightly...
It's a different industry.
But there is I know I'm a bit more flexible, but it is. So, it's such a... It's a hard balance to find.
And it's dentistry is still very female heavy. Traditionally most dentists were male. So I'm a quarter of a century qualified this year, still midlife crisis. So the year I qualified, 98, was the first year that the class was 50% female, and the class is now predominantly female, particularly amongst the Irish graduates. So it was the case that the more males were the dentists and the support staff, the hygienists, receptionists and nurses were female. Now we have more female dentists plus a lot of female support staff. So we do have some male. But
from our key insights now, don't quote me on this, I'll have to double check with Margaret, but I'm pretty sure for last year, 75% of registrations were female.
Yeah, that makes sense to me.
And we were doing a photo shoot recently and my business manager is like, it's all women.
It's all women.
You have to have men. We're like, we don't have any men.
I do remember at one point Ray in Dundrum saying to me, can we please engage a man, that we need more testosterone in this building, like it's all women. But because it's a very female heavy industry, I remember 20 odd years ago when Norma Jean and myself and our hygienists at the time were the ones having babies, our then practice manager saying, you won't believe how the cycle moves, and in the blink of an eye you'll be the person who doesn't have the childcare stress. You've got a teenager, you've got somebody in their 20s, and you'll have younger team members who are moving into that. And of course, childcare and the responsibilities are more equally spread, but I do find a lot of the feedback from my female team members that still a lot of the buck stops with them as regards pickups and drop-offs and school. So you have to, I think it's important to really understand the challenges that your team members have and to try and work with that as much as you can.
And have you been in many situations where you've a dental nurse who has been working with you for, and we can definitely say 5-6 years, because that's you would tend to keep your staff for that minimum amount of time, and they have their first baby, say, and they're coming back from maternity, and they're only available part-time, because we're up against that all of the time. A lot of the nurses we would have would be 10 years plus experience, good solid experience, but when they have their baby, they don't want to go back full-time, and they're looking for part-time, and the majority of the times it's not available at their current practice. But once again, we're going back to, that work and life balance is hard for a dental setting. But, is it something you think, that it's kind of something that needs to be looked at or worked around? Because, 75% of the dental population is female orientated, and you've good solid, these are good solid dental nurses,
Yeah, and you can
dentists,
lose them from the skill set, the skill net base.
So have you been up against that at all? Or, if you were in that situation, like if you have someone permanently, is it difficult to offer that part-time or...
I can only speak for myself,
Yeah.
and if I have a good person, I will do everything I can to make it work.
I would have that same approach myself for employees.
I think one of the biggest challenges for all employers is exactly what you've touched on, whether it's a dental nurse or a barista or a restaurant manager or a solicitor or a hygienist. They have a baby, and the cost of childcare is absolutely outlandish. And it becomes very difficult to insure a car, tax a car, put petrol in a car and pay for a creche. It's also very difficult to get part-time arrangements with creches. So unless you have a mum or a dad or a mother-in-law or a sister or somebody who'll help you, that to me is one of the biggest problems. It's not just in dentistry, but of course that's where my area of expertise would be. We lose people, really valuable people with amazing experience purely because of that trap of the cost of childcare. And then
you're restricted to a start and finish time.
Yeah.
Because I'm working with a nurse at the moment who is like 15 years experience, and I know I can stand by her 100%. And I wanted to send her to a certain practice, and she's to do like 45-minute commute. But the starting hours for the practice are like 7:30, and you don't finish till 5:30. But the earliest she can put her baby into the creche is 8.
Yeah,
and she has to be back at 6.
Yeah.
So unless
as a nation,
we're
definitely lagging behind. I'm really fortunate. I've lots of mums, particularly in Dundrum, and they have various different concoctions of childcare arranged so that they can continue to work. But I don't remember ever having somebody who was really able to come back to work relaxed when their child was in a creche, because if there's a sniffle, if there's a cough, the creche are on the phone, you've got to be there at this time, you've got to pick up at that time. Yeah. What if, as happens in dentistry, it's 5 to 6 and a really long-standing patient arrives at the front door and their son has got a hockey ball in the face and 3 smashed teeth? Your dental nurse cannot walk out and leave the dentist. Yeah. So it is a challenge. And I'm very lucky in that I think a lot of my dental nurses who are mothers have been able to use their network or their family to... Yeah. I think that's a massive thing for us as a nation, nothing to do with dentistry, but to do with just the female population who are working. It's all very well talking about getting through the glass ceiling, but there's not enough support for women who want to go back to work and needs, and it's also not a women problem, it's a family problem. But a lot of the book does rest with the women. Yeah. So it's a challenge, but there are ways. And like, I'm always happy to look at part-time work or certain days, maybe longer shifts, less days.
But that's one thing. When I'm working on a role for you, like one thing I always say to the person is the good thing about working with you is, like I said before, if you prove yourself that, if anything changes in your personal life, you will do whatever you can. And you generally do, because you see the value, that they bring to the practice. Mm-hmm. And I believe that's, one of the key factors, why you're so successful, in retaining your staff. And I think the other thing is because you do keep that open door policy and there's no hierarchy and people can feel, that they can come to you.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's so important that, for me anyway, again, I can only speak about my own experience, but that every single person in the practice, we are all on a team. It's not a pyramid. Absolutely, And like in Dundrum, we have an oral surgeon with so many decades of experience. He's more letters after his name than I can actually fit in the brass plaque. Right. He's amazing. And he speaks to the trainee dental nurse the same as he speaks to his patients, the same as he speaks to me. Yeah. He's got the same level of respect for everybody, and that's really important. In Stepaside, we jokingly refer to ourselves as the senior crew, the 50 plus dentists, all the way down to a gorgeous dental nurse who's 19. Yeah. And we're all on the same level. We're all pulling in the same direction. Yeah. And I think when you've got something that feels old-fashioned and hierarchical, that's just not going to work nowadays. And it's not a nice environment to work in either.
No. And again, like as an employer, I would imagine you'd want to retain your staff.
And you want to enjoy going to work.
You don't want to having to on a regular basis, start looking for staff again. Like I do this for a living. Mm-hmm. I provide staff to employers for a living, but I wouldn't want to to be on the other foot.
Yeah.
It's too stressful for a start. And then it's the downtime and the training and the cost. It's the little things.
And I think also, just like one thing that I've had to come to terms with in recent years is that there will be a flux in the team, whether it's for family reasons but for me, sometimes the flux is a good news story. So, for example, we've a front desk team member in Dundrum at the moment who's been studying her HR qualification, which she's now passed, and she's got a job with a HR company. So for me, that's a really good news story. She was really frank with me about that in the interview, kept the communication open the whole time about it. And when she gave me her notice, I was very sad for myself because I had a job to do, but really, really happy for her because it's, somebody's gone off on this next chapter of their life. So whether that's a new career, a new qualification or a new baby or whatever it is, that's an exciting thing.
But it's a better thing as well that if anyone is leaving you, that they're always leaving you for a positive, like a good reason.
Hopefully
so again, if anyone, was to leave you, it's after a very, very long time. And it's generally because they've recently got married and they've been doing a long commute, for 6 or 7 years. And now they've had a baby, and it's generally something like that. It's never, oh, I'm leaving, after 6 months or a year because I'm not happy or something like that.
Yeah, and
it's always a positive
You'll always
reason.
get the wrong fit sometimes. And I think, I was saying to you before we started, I was speaking with a friend of mine this morning who is in the corporate business world, and she had made a wrong decision and realised it really quickly. And I think the thing is, just like in a relationship, if that is what has happened, everybody recognising that really quickly and having an adult conversation about it, because you want that person to be in a job that better suits them and you want somebody who suits the practice.
Yeah.
So trying to recognise that quickly.
And on that, like what I would say to every job seeker going for an interview, and I know a lot of recruitment consultants and directors would probably disagree with me, right? But I always say to the person, never be afraid to ask questions. And they're surprised by that because the perception is it's about the client, and you do your preparation on the client and everything like that. And I've heard maybe a couple of directors before and they say it's not about you, it's about the client, where I completely disagree with that. It is about you as well. It's your job search and
Absolutely.
It's really important that you're happy. So I would always advise everyone when you go out for an interview, obviously do your homework and do your research on the practice, but be who you are, be true to yourself and don't be afraid to ask questions. And when they ask me, what questions should I ask? And I said, whatever you feel need answered for yourself, because, this has to be the right move for you. You want to be going in, you want to go in there for another 5 years. And if you don't get the answer you're looking for, or if you don't if you're uncomfortable or something with the person who is interviewing you, you need to take all that on board, because that's more than likely the person you're going to be working for.
Yeah.
And then, what's really important is that you always go with your gut. Like whatever that little voice is saying, whatever that feeling is, that's giving you the right answer. But I don't know how anyone could make a decision whether it's the right job for them unless they ask a certain amount of questions, but then again, I do things differently.
Yeah, I think you encourage people to be authentic, which is really important.
Yeah.
If you have an employer who's putting up a veneer of being something and a job seeker is putting up a veneer of being something that they're not, how can that work?
Yeah.
Like most of us, particularly from full-time employment, we spend more time in our work environment than we do with our families.
Yeah.
You need to feel, maybe happy is the wrong word, but you need to feel content and you need to feel comfortable in your environment, and you can't do that if you're not.
You need to, not that you have to, I'm sure a lot of people prefer not to be working beyond the beach, sunning themselves. But, the bottom line for me is that, I can only put you into a job and you should only accept a job if, you get up out of bed and enjoy going to work as much as possible.
Yeah.
Because we do spend a lot of our time there.
Yeah.
So, and the only way to do that is that, both parties, that it works for both.
Yeah, and so like in an interview, I love when somebody has questions. I hate when I go through the whole process and we have a chat and I walk them around and
I warn them.
Give me some. What questions have you got to me? You must have questions for me. You must have questions for me. And there's no such thing as a stupid question.
Your interviews, you know, like your style is very good because, you know, what I say to if it's a dentist, a nurse, a hygienist, your interviews are very conversational. Mm-hmm. They're thorough. They last a minimum of an hour. You absolutely love questions, and within 30 seconds you will know whether you want to work for Sarah Jane Dunne or not.
You're saying I'm Marmite.
No, but no, the absolute
like it or loathe
opposite,
it. Yeah,
you know.
Yeah.
But and the thing is, you know, I love working with people. Like I know a lot of job seekers who come to me, you know, they're going to think, you know, like they think I love everybody, you know, because, you know, I go, oh my God, you know, I love these and da 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 da. And I really mean it, you know, because it's just, you know, everything is so positive, everything is so open, and, you know, you get that straight away, you know, and it's a two-way street.
Yeah, and we're lucky, fortunate in both of my practices. Well, I keep referring to them as both of my practices. The Portman Dentex team would love to hear me say that, but I do still feel like it's my own practice. So they are great practices for a couple of reasons. The biggest reasons are we have an amazing team and we've got a gorgeous bunch of patients that are really, really great and refer their friends and family to us. So I'm absolutely privileged to go to work every single day. I don't always feel that, but I know that I'm absolutely privileged. People can spend their money on whatever they choose to spend their money on. They're not obliged to come to see us as patients. And it's the same with team members. They can work in any environment they wish. So I'm so fortunate with the intelligent, empathic, skilled people that I work with in both of my practices. I'm genuinely blessed to go to work every day.
Yeah, fabulous.
I don't always feel it.
Can say that.
I don't always feel it, but I am.
Can I just ask you, just like changing up just slightly, with regards, you know, you retaining your staff. So as you know, we've recently launched our salary guide and our dental insights and trends. And Margaret, who's the marketing manager, is the masters behind the insights and trends. And there were some interesting things, not that I didn't know them, but when you delve into them a bit more. And there was one that really resonated with her as an employee, that one of the key insights was 25% of support staff haven't witnessed a salary increase in over a decade. So, you know, Margaret has been asking me about that ever since, you know, so I can only talk from, you know, my personal view. I would have thought it was something standard as long as the company is doing well and that person is, you know, has been dedicated and loyal and committed to you for the last year. I'm not sure if it is something that's standard. So with regards you, like in retaining your staff, is that something that would be a key factor in order to retain your staff, or what's your take on it?
There was a few things. First of all, congratulations to you both, because I've only just received my copy, Marguerite, and leafed through it. But you've done an amazing job on it. And it's so interesting to actually get some hard data on things and drill through the data and see what's there. So there was a lot of interesting things in it. Another thing that just strikes me there is you're asking about what things are standard. And one of the huge things about dentistry, you know, you qualify as a dentist, 22, 23, maybe you work as an associate for a little while, and then eventually you become a practice owner. Perhaps that's your journey. That's a journey for a lot of the clients that you work with. Zero business training, zero business knowledge, zero HR training, zero knowledge about how to perform a staff review, how to recruit, how to structure team training, how to anything. It's just not covered at all. I think now the feedback I'm getting is that younger grads do get a little touch on it, but there really is no preparation. And in dentistry, again, it's such an all-consuming role that there's very little time to learn from other industries. So I have a bit of an unusual career trajectory. As you know, I worked in practice for almost 20 years and then I stepped out of clinical dentistry altogether, and I've since stepped back into it. So I have a few different hats on. But that allowed, one of the reasons I did that, and one of the things it allowed me to do, was to really look at other industries and to learn about business, healthy businesses and what they do. I read a book many years ago called The E-Myth by Michael Gerber, which kind of described the small business owner and how a lot of them think that they're business owners and they're entrepreneurs, and they're not. They have a job. They have a job where they have to go and do dentistry all day, every day, and if they stop doing it, there is actually no business. So that was maybe the beginning of my learning about the fact that dentistry is a business and you need to learn all the different aspects of it. But getting back to your question about whether things are standard, there's very little that's standard across dentistry, because the difference between a small practice with a single practitioner, a girl at the front desk and a nurse, to a medium-sized practice with maybe 4 or 5 surgeries where there are some systems in place, to what we have now with these very big multi-practices or corporates, they're unrecognisable across them. Having said all that, to have somebody who hasn't had a salary review in a decade is astounding. Astounding to me.
Yeah, and that's the thing, I'm an employer, and I'm an employer for 17 years, and I just think when you have a good employee, they're like gold dust.
They're like gold dust,
and it's really important, that they know how important they are to you. And like I said, you don't have to, do a lot. It's the little things. And
appreciation
I would have thought
is the main thing, I think.
And it's that appreciation. And during, I'm giving a lot away now, because during some of the key insights and trends, which we will be covering, particularly after COVID. So I knew we were going to be in a different market. Now, actually, when I came back, I thought the business was going to be in trouble. I thought we were going to see a big reduction in salaries, and there was going to be a surplus of support staff available. We actually, it was completely the opposite. It was none of those.
Yeah.
I had the best 2 years in business. Salaries definitely didn't decrease; they increased, if anything. And there was actually no movement with support staff.
Yeah.
So I was on the phone all day, every day, to see where we're at. And say, for example, I was calling 10 dental nurses a day, at least 3 or 4 had left the industry. And the 2 main reasons why they had left the industry was lack of appreciation and lack of pay. And it's an industry that can't afford to be losing,
And that's really interesting. That's really interesting to know, because another thing that a lot of dentists don't have a handle on is their numbers. And a lot of practices this year and last year, the turnover has gone down, but the pay expectations have gone up. So that's a difficult balance to get right, particularly if you don't know your numbers. But appreciation costs nothing.
Yeah.
And I think if you have an honest conversation with your team members, which is, we're having a really tight year, I really, really want to reward you, but we're going to have to defer this for 3 or 4 months. I can't tell you how much I appreciate you. Yeah. And also we're doing this and we're doing that, and let's have this
I think
team
once you're
building.
keeping the communication lines open.
Communication.
People really do appreciate, it does make a difference. Well, now we're almost running out of time.
Okay.
But before we finish, you dropped a bombshell on me then a few years ago that you had sold your practice to Portman Dental.
Yep.
Now, before you just tell me a bit about that. I just want to ask you a question, because, when you run a business, it's your baby, and, you invest your life into it. Well, I did anyway. I have no life, but, you do. And my understanding of a corporate is you have to stay in the practice within 3 or 5 years. So when that happens, all of a sudden, do you have to do things differently? I know for myself, my ethos is that people matter, and I am who I am, and I can never change. So if I was to sell my business on and someone came in and said, no, you have to do it a different way, I don't think I could do it, right? So is that the case, or were you left to your own devices? We would have a lot of clients. I'd have a lot of clients calling me,
asking
see if
you
any
for the
information
insight
on Portman and what the system is and what the process is. And so you might put some light on that.
Yeah, I think it was probably a bit of a bombshell to a lot of people. It wasn't a bombshell to myself and Ray, who's obviously my business partner in Dundrum. We had always, so I like your analogy about it being a child. It is like a child, and our child was over 20. So some children need to learn to leave. This is a message to my 22-year-old daughter. Need to learn how to leave the fold. And it is that, we started off Dundrum, just the 2 of us working with a part-time hygienist, and then we expanded it and built it up. We're a team of 20 there now, and it's wonderful. And it's great to see it becoming more and more successful. But it also, you get to this tipping point, or for us certainly, where we're advancing in age. I'm 50 this year. I was 50 this year. Ray's a few years older. And you want to do the best for a practice which is getting bigger and bigger, which it means more and more investment.
Yeah.
And that becomes less and less likely as you get older, that you're going to take the risk of buying the 150,000 CEREC machine or the MRI scanner or the, and it's also, and it was a personal decision, but also it was really important for us that the kind of baton was passed on, and not at the point where one of us got too old or too sick to work, that we were in a position where we were still there and we were still able to stay with the practice. And so I can't comment on any other corporates because I don't have any experience with them. I will say that we did get approached by several other companies over the years, and it gets back to the employee-employer thing. My values, Ray's values, our practice values wouldn't have matched with those values.
Yeah.
Whereas our meetings with what was then Portman is now Portman Dentex, from the outset, they were really good people and we had really good conversations all the way from when we
They've
first...
been doing it a very long time, and like they're a different animal, really.
For me, they are.
Because...
And like from when we first met Gary Chapman, the mergers and acquisitions, who you know, Gary, Julie Ross, the CEO, is absolutely amazing. So it was they were very different conversations from the outset, and that's why it was the right fit for us.
Yeah.
As regards to the changes, it is different. But you heard earlier on a regular basis, I forget that it's not my practice. I still feel and act as if it is, and every decision I make in there. And
so have you been left to your own you can still do a lot of things your own way?
Honestly, nothing has changed. Right. I mean, we've different uniforms and they help us with our website. And what has changed have been positive things for the most part.
Okay.
You know Matt Gledhill. We are blessed. I knew Matt in a previous incarnation.
Yeah.
And he's the head of operations and also is in mergers and acquisitions now in Ireland. He is such a great support for us. We have a little family of 5 practices, which is
He's a really nice guy, though, personable.
Amazing.
And again, it's immediate with Matt, anyone dealing with him at whatever level.
Yeah, and he's a great person with great problem solving skills. He was a practice manager. He knows exactly what it's like. Yeah. So we actually have this little family now, which is getting a little bit bigger. And I've found it weirdly a great support, because it can be quite isolating being a practice owner or being a practice manager. So having other people in the same boat that can support you, and certainly from things like being able to invest in the practice, we've been given fantastic support. So for us, it's like the child analogy. The child was an adult. It was moving into a different phase, and it's been not seamless. There's definitely been challenges, but it was definitely the right decision for us and for the practice. Whereas Step Aside is like a little toddler. We're building up, we're all finding our feet. We have a great team there, but we're very much at the kind of beginning of the life cycle in Step Aside.
Yeah.
So,
and it's great as well because, even with Portman, they have supported me from you, from the feedback that you've been given as well. So
it's all about relationships.
Yeah.
Everything in business that works is about good relationships. And that's what you do very well. Yeah. That's why you're so successful with what you do and your clients.
Yeah.
And nice people like nice people, and good people work with good people.
Well, I hope, we've made a difference. Well, Sarah Jane, thank you very much for
Thank you, Marguerite. And thank you for all your help over the years. It's very much appreciated.
Thank you very much for supporting me throughout the years. It's something that, and I always say, it's not something that, I take for granted. And maybe we'll have you on again sometime.
And congratulations for doing this. This is a huge thing. So very, very well done.
Oh, thanks very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for tuning into the first episode of The Dental Chair. If anything resonated with you, if you have any queries on your job search, your recruitment needs, you can contact me directly at marguerite@irishdentaljobs.ie, or you can call 01849 40 70. If you enjoyed this episode, please like and share. This is Marguerite Morgan from Irish Dental Jobs, reminding you to treat every interaction with care and consideration, because in recruitment and in life, people matter. Until the next time, slán agus beannacht.